Okay, so it's well over halfway through the month by the time I'm recording this. The 8th volume of Clear Card in English is on its way to my house, and Yamazaki is on the chapter of Chapter 48. I'm pretty sure that's the first time he's ever appeared solo. I think he's appeared on a couple of chapters in the original series. This is definitely the first time that Yamazaki has ever been solo on a cover. In fact, it might be one of the first times that any of the side characters have been solo on a cover. But that's enough talking about Yamazaki, because like I predicted in Chapter 47, while that was a down chapter with nothing happening, this one sets up something big. A quick apology for being so late in the month. I've just been really busy with another project that is coming to fruition soon. Before we dive into the analysis of this chapter, let me just remind everyone again that this chapter is available on Comixology.com. Please support the official release. It's the only way that we will ever get a Season 2 of Clear Card. Now, let's talk about the chapter. Chapter 48 begins with Sakura dreaming again, and she meets the cloaked figure, and she actually tries to have a conversation with it, although the cloaked figure is not much of a conversationalist. And during the conversation, the big snake thing shows up, and I still don't really have a good guess of what this is. I've always kind of assumed that it was the avatar of Kaito, or his influence, but it may be like the representative of the magic that's within Akiho. After Sakura and Akiho both wake up, Akiho goes out into the garden and she meets Kaito, who's having a nice little moon viewing or something, and they clearly get to talking about something, and while we don't see the conclusion of this conversation, the Twitter sphere does seem to have come to the conclusion that Akiho confessed her feelings to Kaito in this. Now, I'm just a emotionally dead inside non-shipper, so I didn't really get that, but I can totally see where people get that impression, and yeah, I'm just going to accept that interpretation, because the next day we do see Akiho, and she apparently has, red eyes, like she's been up pretty late, or maybe the implication is that she was crying and sad. I hope not. I don't want to see Akiho sad. Moving on, the rest of the day at school picks up with Naoko clearly trying to recruit Shaoran to be in the play, something that he is not at all interested in, and I don't blame him considering what happened the last time Naoko wrote a play for him to be in. Although I don't actually think Naoko wrote the original play, but he was a princess in a school play, and I don't think he wants to do that again because he just thinks that's what's going to happen. But lastly, in this chapter, we move on to the big thing that actually happened, which is that time suddenly stops. And it stops for everyone who isn't magical. So Sakura and Shaoran are able to move, but everyone else is frozen, as indicated by the layer that has been drawn over everyone. Sakura and Shaoran rush out into the hall to confirm this, and while they're out in the hall ready to act on whatever this problem is, some kind of force takes place on Shaoran, and the Sakura cards burst out of him, which is interesting, though it's not exactly unexpected. It did kind of seem like Shaoran has been holding the Sakura cards inside him this whole time. Like, sometimes we see him with the cards, but in the anime we showed that he kind of seemed to carry around these little magic marbles that contained what we believe to be the Cloud Card spirits. So maybe Shaoran has been keeping the cards inside him. And that kind of makes sense in the way that the original cards turned clear. Like, Sakura still owns the physical bodies of the cards in the sense that she has the clear cards, the original clear cards in the original Sakura book. And it was Shaoran simply stealing the spirits of the Cloud cards. So it kind of makes sense that they would, reside in his body in some kind of alternate form, but now here they are bursting out of him in full card form. And it makes me wonder, are the cards returning to Sakura? Is Shaoran's power breaking and he can no longer hold on to the cards, or is this Kaito just kind of messing with him and breaking his forged contract with the Sakura cards because Shaoran needs to be depowered for the final confrontation, perhaps? Not that he's been that strong to begin with, but it's interesting. It's a cool way to end the chapter, and we will find out what the next chapter holds, hopefully in just a couple of weeks. I don't think there's any break scheduled for this month, so we should find out what this cliffhanger is all about come December. Now, just like last month and a lot of chapters before this, I do want to gush about the art in this chapter because, again, I think the couple of months that Clamp took off at the beginning of this year for reasons that surely aren't related to the current global circumstances. The art quality of the series seems to have gone up. I really appreciate the opening sequence in the void of clocks, I guess we can call it. I'm not really sure what to call this area, but there are clocks involved and nothing else. It's a lot of good framing. There's good perspective, especially on this page, where you see the snake dragon thing towering over both characters. It's a very nice, imposing look. But in addition to those really nice frames, you have what I consider probably one of the most beautiful framings of pages that has ever been in this series entirely, and you don't really get to see it from single pages like I usually show, but when you put these two pages together, they're the exact same framing. It's the balance is perfect. This is a beautiful set, and it looks great when you see it actually in the manga too, like in the actual printed book. It is an amazing shot, and I really love the way that Clamp has been upping their game with the art in the series recently. And beyond the cool art and the stylized art, you also just have Clamp clearly having fun with the backgrounds. You see on this page where you have the little, I guess you call them paper children in the background, just like they don't have to fill these kids in at all, and they just have this sort of unique little paper cutout looking background character. And yet that's not even consistent, because in this panel they're there, but in the panel above them the characters are drawn, and that should bother me in the lack of consistency, but they all just look so great that I have to forgive it. They're drawing the kids in the background with this very interesting eye shape that I know I've seen, but it's never really stuck out to me before. The expressions in this chapter also, I think, are just kind of above and beyond where they usually go. I mean, look at this Shaoran just freaking out here. I think I want to cut this out and make some kind of emoji out of it. Now, I've heaped a lot of positivity on the series. I feel like I do have to balance it out with at least one negative thing, and it's something that I've found that I'm not the only person who feels this way, and it is the frustration with Shaoran and Sakura's relationship at this point. You two have known each other for 3 years. You've been, quote-unquote, dating for, by this point in the series, about 6 months. And you've been, quote-unquote, in love with each other for 1 year and 6 months. And I get that you're both 13 and 12 at this point. There's no time to explain how I know these numbers. The puppy love is getting frustrating. The awkwardness between them is getting annoying at this point. And I accept it because it's adorable, but the rational part of my brain says, come on, just come up with a better dynamic at this point. The problem is that I don't know what the better dynamic would be, because we're so used to Sakura and Shaoran being awkward around each other. Don't know how else to have them interact. I mean, if they're just normal with each other, then they're back to where they were in Cardcaptor Sakura, where they're comfortable around each other, but don't have feelings or don't express feelings. But if they're too lovey-dovey, then I don't know, I guess it would feel just as inauthentic, or it would get to levels that Clamp does not want to include in this series. But that's chapter 48. It's short, but we're clearly setting up something big for chapter 49. As I've mused about in the previous chapter, the original series only ran for 50 chapters total. We're definitely not finishing this series in 2 more chapters. That's just not happening. But it does feel like we're maybe building toward the end. Thanks everyone for watching. Go ahead and do the YouTube stuff that I know you know how to do, and I don't know why I'm even asking you to, because I don't monetize these videos. I'll see you in the next video.